Hello, everyone. Hi. Welcome back to another fantastic Tuesday here with LoFi History. Hope everyone's doing well.
Fantastic Tuesday.
Yeah, fantastic Tuesday.
That's not alliteration.
Terrific Tuesday.
Terrific Tuesday.
Terrific Tuesday. There
Wonderful Wednesday on Tuesday.
Yeah.
Fabulous Fridays.
Fabulous. Well, but it's not Fridays. Oh, wait, we're doing all the days of the week now. Okay.
Yeah.
Sensational Saturdays.
What about Sundays?
Mediocre Mondays. That's what I want to do.
No, it's a terrific Tuesday again
Yeah.
here for LoFi History. Now let me get our levels going here for everybody. Test. All right, that's a little better on my end. All right, so wow, we've already got some questions as well. Hey,
Good
Susan,
grief.
welcome. And for anyone who's joining us for the first time for LoFi History, this is where you get to chat your history questions for Glen and Marie, sometimes me, very rarely me. If it has to do with Juliet Gordon-Lowe, then I've got it. Oh, hello, Olivia. Good to see you.
Hey. Oh,
Hey.
I have a question. I can put you on the spot first.
Yeah.
Libba. So you do. It's not technotronic music that you do, but it's like technical beat stuff, right?
Yeah.
So that obviously is important to you. Do you have any input on the sad news of the Daft Punk breakup this week? Did you hear about that?
Yeah, I did hear about that. That was disappointing because I am a big fan of Daft Punk. They definitely influenced. I listened to them in college and high school even.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was disappointing, but you know.
It's 23 years, right?
That's a long time. That's a long time.
And they haven't said why. I figured it's just because they're done.
Yeah, I mean, after a while, you're probably just like, I want to do something else.
Yeah.
But yes, thank you for commiserating.
Yes.
Me. At least we have over 2 decades of really cool electronic music.
Yeah,
from
very
Daft
cool.
Punk.
Electronic music. There you go.
Yes. And before we get to questions, I also wanted to give a shout out to those who have donated to our monthly donation goal. We are only $30 away. It's February 23rd. We still got a good week or so. But if you would like to show your appreciation via, good old-fashioned donation and help us reach our goal, then
That's right.
I'm going to go ahead and put the link in the chat if you would like. No pressure, of course. We're just happy that you are here joining us today. And I see we've already got a question from Susan. So our first question for today is going to be about Doughboys. So why were World War I soldiers called Doughboys? Excellent question, Susan. I imagine you'll want to take this one, Glenn.
Yes, but let me skip to the end and disappoint you. We're not really sure.
What?
Why? There is no definite, determinate reason that they got called Doughboys. There are a variety of possibilities. We do know, and this is something I didn't learn until about a couple of years ago, actually, that the term doughboy had existed for American soldiers pre-World War I.
Oh.
There's a reference to them. I think it is in the Mexican War, even referring to, and this is not widespread, but the term is there as doughboys because they tended cook the rations that they got, whether it was cornmeal or flour. They would always make it in some kind of dough and try to make some kind of bread. And so I think that the best guess is that very seldomly used honorific for American soldiers. Someone sometime around 1917 picked up on that, and we're into the era of mass communication with radio and widely available newsprint and things like that. So once someone picks up on it, it's just going to continue and continue and continue. So now those World War I doughboys are what we think of as World War I soldiers. The term GI generally comes about in World War II, right? Not World War I. So that's probably a disappointing answer for you. We're not really sure how it came to be. There are lots of hearsays and comeuppances of what it could be. The shape of the backpack. The American load-bearing equipment in the First World War was terrible. It was a poor design. It was not a bag. It was like this weird wrap thing that had to go very specifically and you couldn't do it in the dark. You couldn't do it in the cold or the rain or with shivering fingers. It was miserable. And it was such a bad design that we decided to go ahead and use it through World War II as well. So but I don't think that's why. That's one reason. Some people thought that it might have come from the fact that Americans were so well fed compared to a lot of those British and French and German guys who had been in the trenches for 3 years, that when they showed up, there was actually a British nurse serving in France who made reference to the Americans finally getting into the war, and she talked about them as gods. They seemed so tall and noble, and they were not, it's kind of sad, really. It kind of pumps us up, but it's sad. She's talking about her own British soldiers, and they just look emaciated and defeated, and the spirit is out of them. They're like husks of men. So comparatively, when the Americans show up and they've got that "let me at 'em" attitude, it is a very stark contrast to a lot of folks in France.
Well, it's still some really interesting insight. Yeah. Definitely. Well, and a great question, Susan. Thank you for joining us today. And you guys, I forgot to ask what you're wearing today. Probably because I already know, because you did 2 webcasts today.
And we have to do another one tomorrow.
That's
to do another one tomorrow.
That's right. We have been so busy with our webcasts with students and classes all over Georgia, and sometimes outside the state of Georgia as well. But looks like we can pretty much tell you're of the Civil War era, but which, you seem to depict different roles of the Civil War, so why don't you tell us a little bit about it?
I am dressed as a Civil War nurse today. So nurses did not have exactly a uniform per se that they were issued, right? Usually they would wear, especially up in the north, it would be a black dress or a dark colored dress. This is a darker blue dress, something that is darker because that hides the blood and other things that get on your outfit when you are taking care of humans. I also have my you can't see it, it's a very long apron that covers almost the entire circle of my skirt. And it also has a little pinup bib to keep the front of my dress covered and clean. And then I actually have, I'm really proud of these. These are like period safety pins.
Oh, how
like
cool.
Originals?
They're not originals.
Oh, okay.
But
they're the way they're supposed to be.
Yeah. They have a little bit more of a...
Oh, cool, yeah.
Here.
Oh, they go invisible.
Oh, they go invisible.
There you go.
There we go. Okay.
Yeah, we can kind of see
so there's a little bit more of a tip here.
Yeah.
And they're all from one piece of wire, cleverly bent and shaped.
Oh,
so they're
that's
more
fun.
period accurate.
Yeah.
How cool.
So have that, and then of course I have my head covering. This just seems very nursey. This just like indicates Florence Nightingale nurse.
Putting that hair back and getting it done.
Yeah. That's right.
Now, and the students learned something today. Marie, tell them why you simply don't fit the qualifications for a nurse in the Civil War. Poor Marie.
I always tell people that I have to be a Southern nurse because I don't fit the qualifications for Dorothea Dix in the North, because Dorothea Dix had 3 qualifications, and you had to be over 30, which I don't qualify, married, which I don't qualify for, and also homely looking, which I hope I don't qualify for.
No. You're a terrible nurse, Marie.
I know, I wouldn't get in. I wouldn't get into nursing school.
Yes, and you said that she was very stubborn, and she had a nickname. She'd be called Dragon Dix. Yeah. She was very ferocious and formidable. Oh, I love it. The dragon. The dragon. All right, so we've got our Civil War nurse, and Glenn, I think you may have worn the hat last week.
I did, yes. I was a Union soldier last week too, because we've been doing these programs, right? Yes. And it's the costume that's here. I know some of you have given me grief. I promise next week I'll wear something that just blows your mind. Yes. But yeah, I'm just a typical Union soldier. I've got on my forage cap again. I have on my fatigue blouse. And over just a shirt. So there was an issue shirt for the Union that was incredibly itchy and part wool. And the soldiers, if they could get them during the summer months, would have folks send pre-made shirts from home. That's one of the basic things that most women who, could make clothing and home at this time, they could make shirts. So there were a lot of shirts that were sent. Easy. Comparatively, there's
it's a square with 2 other squares.
And a slit cut right here for your head. and a couple of buttonholes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Fairly easy.
They're one of the easiest things to do.
Yeah, but this fatigue blouse, so this was, they had a frock coat with long tails during the Civil War. This is what the soldier was supposed to wear, but they were also issued this fatigue blouse, which is what they were supposed to be doing when they were having to dig entrenchments or go on foraging. This is the work outfit. Turns out, this is what most soldiers wore because it's only got 4 buttons, it's loose, it's easy to wear, and it was just so common. It became, especially in the Western armies, like here in the Atlanta campaign, it's just what soldiers wore. And it is a perfect example of why we in the museum field say that which is rare shall be common, that which is common shall be rare. So this fatigue coat was the most issued clothing item in the American Civil War. Wow. They made literally millions of them.
Wow.
Guess how many exist in museums that we know of?
5? That's
5.
it?
I thought there would be more than that.
Wow.
5.
Maybe there's lots and lots just stored in big trunks in attics.
Oh, we wish.
Yeah.
Well, and see, that's the thing.
Yeah.
They are an incredibly utilitarian thing. Let me ask you guys and you at home, when your pair of socks wears out, do you put them back for posterity or do you throw them away?
Yeah, they're gone.
You throw them away, and that's the same thing. Even, this is just a junky piece of uniform that they're going to wear out in the war, and if they had one when they went home, they're just going to use it to do chores and give it to the kids to play with. It's like your old socks. You're not going to keep this. So yeah, we have about 5 extant examples of the federal fatigue blouse from all the millions that were made.
Do we have more examples of like the dress uniform?
Oh yeah.
Frock coat?
Yes, the frock coat and officer's coat, right?
Yeah.
Because again, that which is rare shall be common, that which is common shall be rare. So the officers, when they went home, they have their nice uniforms with the rank on the things and everything, and the frock coats are nicer. So people would put those up and say, I'm going to keep this as a memento of my time in service.
Right, yeah.
No one kept their old workaday uniforms, their socks, their caps, their underwear.
Yeah.
Right? If you find a pair of Confederate-made underwear, you have a very valuable piece of property.
All right, I guess we got to start collecting folks' socks in
That's
2020.
right. Check those attics, folks.
Underwear.
Fried is here. Hey, Fried. Fried
Speaking
says,
of underwear.
Yeah. Fried says, how many iPhones will show up in a museum one day? Yeah, I'm sure plenty.
But you know what? Okay, so then we'll move on. But here's the example I share with people. Yeah, so iPhones, they'll show up. How many of you keep a Post-it note when you're done?
Oh, yeah, that would be so cool.
In 100 years, there won't be a Post-it note left.
Yeah.
Right? I'm assuming, but
right.
I mean, that is the perfect example of a totally disposable item we don't even think of.
Right.
I go through probably 10 a day myself.
Yeah.
Shame on me. But no one's going to keep Post-it notes. That which is rare shall be common. That which is common shall be incredibly rare.
I like that saying. That's good. All right, so it looks like we also have, we have Karen. Hey, Karen.
Hey, Karen.
Good to see you. And Karen says, my daughter says Glen and Marie probably throw off the sunglasses when the live is over and Libba throws some on. That's right.
She's got us figured out.
Yes. All right, so we have another question from Susan. Susan asks, why did eras stop being named after the Edwardian era? Why does no one say we're living in the Windsor era? What will future historians call this era? Oh, that's a very good question. So, do we have a specific reason why? Or I assume that these eras in past times, obviously they're named by the ruler at the time, like Queen Victoria, and we have, I guess, King Edward. But do y'all have an answer for that?
It's interesting because sometimes eras are named retrospectively. So like our time now, we look back and we name the era, and there's only a very few periods of time where people name themselves almost. Like the Elizabethan era, when under Queen Elizabeth, people called themselves Elizabethans within their own time period because they were so proud to be subjects of Queen Elizabeth I. That also happened a bit with Queen Victoria as well. They would actually call themselves Victorians because they were proud to be a part of the British Empire under Queen Victoria. Also, those are really long reigning monarchs. So it's not. You had time to get used to the idea of being like a subject of Queen Victoria and having a long lineage of things that had happened already. So when you then, it's interesting because the Edwardian era is far shorter, and then it kind of disappears and fizzles. But that's because you have World War I. So that's when you're thinking about World War I. So usually that's like a World War I era. I also get annoyed when people are like, "That's not an era; it's a war." Era means period of time.
Yes.
This could be the era of, like, Twitch or anything. Like,
yeah,
you can
right.
literally assign era to anything. It just means a period of time.
And your point is well taken. I would back it up because World War I was such a fundamentally shifting turning point in world history, right? Things before. Oh, we could get into a long conversation. I will make the argument.
Downton Abbey.
The Downton Abbey period, yes.
Yes, right.
Or is this Downton Abbey or is that? No. So, I will make the argument, and lots of people will disagree with me, but I think there are a few points in history that define such a short period of time, such as World War I and the immediate aftermath, where things go from being one thing to another thing within a very short amount of time. And I think the Great War is very much one of the most significant eras when that happened, right? And there was so much change and a different perspective, not just of Europeans, but of people around the world. They began to question a lot of things. They began to want to see changes. Yeah, and Downton Abbey, we love that. I think everyone here loves that show. And that show does a great job because it's so weird when you go watch it, right? You watch Downton Abbey and you get to sadly, the end of it.
Well, they have a movie.
They do have a movie. But then if you go back and watch it again, you start watching it again when it starts out in 1912, you realize what a fantastic job that show did by saying, here is this world that they live in 1912. And it is, even in the show, remarkably different from the show you end up watching when it's the 1920s.
Yeah.
Mid to late. Span of.
That's 10 years.
10 years.
Yeah.
It's a decade. Now you have that incredible amount of change.
Yeah.
Just societal, industry, technology, gender roles.
Yeah. So I don't think. Again, you may disagree. I don't think we're going to have another monarch named period for quite some time. We're going to start defining things by social movements rather than heads of state reigns and things like that.
I don't think that we're going to actually call them that, but I've heard like this is the second Elizabethan age under Queen Elizabeth II. Or that you have like the era of like Trump or something, like named after different presidents for their presidency, because that defines that short little period of their.
But when
they were president or when they were a ruler. But I don't think that we're going to have like large movement.
The Windsor period.
Yeah.
It's not going to, and we're not, again, most of us will be dead by the time we figure out if it sticks. I mean, and the further back you go, the more we tend to compress larger amounts of time into eras, right?
Right.
I mean.
So in 100 years, they might call this something era that we had never even
heard.
Right.
Look at the medieval, I mean, how long is the medieval period?
Several hundred years.
Yeah, several hundred, and yet we say the medieval period as though.
Right.
We're going to get condensed into something else.
We'll get condensed eventually.
Well, excellent question and
fascinating
we could
just keep
topic.
talking.
I could keep talking because, like, right now we divide up the 1900s into decades, like Edwardian, Roaring 20s, Great Depression, World War II, the 50s, the 60s, the 70s, the 80s. We talk about them in decades.
Because things like that are mostly still within living memory.
Yeah.
And people don't remember them as eras. They remember them as their childhood or their teenage years or when they first got married or whatever.
Yeah, good point. Our next question is going to come from Olivia.
Yay!
So Olivia says, I'm watching a documentary about the 19th Amendment. Cool.
Nice.
And they said that, quote, women weren't given the vote, they took it. Do you agree with this? I like that question. That's fun. So, Marie, let's start with you. They took it. Now,
I think that's just phrasing. I think that is very much a not a historical question, and that sounds like perhaps not good, but I think that's a matter of modern perception looking at the women's movement. I think that gives the women saying like that they were given the right to vote. It's a question of language rather than a question of what actually happened. Saying that they were given the right to vote takes away their agency. Saying they took the right to vote gives the women their own agency over their own destiny. So I think that's really a language question versus a history question, but I do see what you mean. I think saying they took the right to vote or they fought for the right to vote, it sheds more light onto the entire long history of the movement that had happened starting at Seneca Falls in the 1840s going up into the 1920s. It shows that they weren't just given the right to vote. They wanted the right to vote. They fought for the right to vote. Saying they took the right to vote, I don't know. I don't like that language either, because like they took it, yes. They took hold of their right. Yeah. But they didn't like steal it.
Right.
It was done legally.
It's kind of like when saying the right to vote was recognized finally. Like they've always had or should have had that right, but it was finally granted or recognized. Glenn, you got something to say about this as the dude? As the dude, yes.
Do I have a right to say something about that?
You can take one.
I'll take it. I think that this is going to sound like a little bit of boosterism for the American system, but I think that it's applicable. When the United States was founded and when the Constitution was established, only propertied white men could vote. They're the only ones who had a say in the government. But the way the spirit of America was established and sung in the Declaration, and the way the flexibility was created in the Constitution, I think it speaks to that. Here's what I mean. How did the 19th Amendment pass?
By voting.
Who voted?
Men.
Men voted to enact the 19th Amendment, right? I think there was one woman in Congress at the time because she was from Wyoming or something like that. I can't remember.
Yes, that's right. Yeah, it was still a territory.
Yeah, it was a territory, but
she was in the House.
But 99+% of people who voted for the 19th Amendment were men. So the existing power structure agreed to grant that right to women because they saw the justice and the legitimacy in expanding enfranchisement to more citizens. Does that make sense? So women who had been agitating for the right to vote had been creating this groundswell of support to make people realize it was the just and right thing to do. Yeah. That's what they did. To imply that they took it means that there was some sort of armed insurrection and they put it into place through violence or through unrest, which is not the case.
Well, they did use sometimes social unrest to further their cause.
Yes,
but they did not march and like write into the Constitution.
Yeah, they didn't break through the glass and go, "We're going to add this whether you want us to or not." Right. So that's my take on it. I think it speaks highly of a power structure that is so flexible that it can expand the people who can participate in the power structure over time. Is it fair in 1780? Is it fair in 1866 when the 15th Amendment is passed? Is it fair in 1920 when the 19th Amendment passes? It's an idea, as Martin Luther King Jr. said. He believes that the universe curves toward the arc of the universe. The arc of the universe tends towards justice, and I think that the American system, for all its faults, does exemplify that.
Yeah.
That's a long, drawn-out answer to what should have been an
excellent question. Excellent topic. And Fried mentions that there's an interesting study analyzing the cohort effects of disenfranchisement, concluding that experiencing it influenced the probability of those who were disenfranchised to vote for their entire lives. So sort of, being, I guess, more.
It means more to them.
appreciative,
Yes,
right.
exactly.
And you always have something you don't recognize the value of it.
Yeah, right.
Something which is given has no value.
Yeah. Let's see, our next question. So we got Olivia's, and now we're going to go to, Stacy has a question. So Stacy asks, what help did we give Europe prior to entering World War II? Did we provide any help against Japan prior to entering the war?
Yes. We were very, very careful about it. She did say World War II, right?
Yes.
Okay. So the United States tended to be very sympathetic in the spirit of its people towards the French, towards the British, and things like that. There were segments of American society who were sympathetic to the Germans. I think in past LoFis, we've discussed the German-American Bund, which is basically the American Nazi party that existed here in the 30s, which very quickly died out. But the United States wanted to officially and legally remain as neutral as possible, because to do otherwise would drag us into the war. And we kind of wanted to stay out of the war. So we did it in very interesting ways, right? We would allow private donations gathered by social organizations to be sent to Great Britain as money. The government's not doing it, but the people are gathering up these donations to send monetary help to especially the British. The Lend-Lease program. So we were not going to sell arms to Great Britain. We were going to lend them things, and they were going to lease us property. This was kind of genius. So let's say Iceland, right? Which the British were supposed to be guarding. The British were stretched incredibly thin when they were fighting against Germany alone in 1940 and part of 41. It would be really handy if the troops they were using to guard Iceland could be sent somewhere else. So the legislation said that Great Britain was going to lend Iceland to the United States, and the United States could put its troops there. And in return for that lend, the United States would not sell, not give, but lease some old World War I era destroyers so that the British Navy could expand and protect those all-important convoys, bringing food to the British from the United States, from the New World, from its overseas dominions, and things like that. Eventually, Lend-Lease expanded into outright lease, weapons and things like that, but no actual U.S. military forces were involved. It was razor-thin technicalities as far as the European theater goes. Japan's a little different. The Japanese... America is further away and does not have as close cultural and social connections with the Asian mainland as it had with the European mainland, generally speaking. So their efforts were mostly directly aimed at Japan, such as the United States froze Japan's financial accounts that were within the United States. They put an embargo on strategic materials, especially oil, fuel reserves, and things like that, which is, in a way, one of the things that forced Japan to expand into the Asian mainland to get those resources from somewhere else. It's a super complicated, cool thing. But yes, the United States did offer a lot of help. And after the attack on Pearl Harbor, the United States declares war against Japan, not Germany, on December 8th. 3 days later, Germany declares war on the United States. And as a result of that, the United States turns around and declares war on Germany on, what is that, the December 11th, 12th, something like that. I can't remember the exact day. And at that point, see, the British and the Americans had already been talking. Well, if you happen to get into the war, America, let's just say that you're in it. What kind of strategies do you think we would both use? And they had all this planned and laid out, right? So once the war officially started and we were officially on paper in, things started to click like this with the Navy, with the Army, with the Air Force, and things like that.
All right, so that's
in a nutshell.
In a nutshell again, yeah. Another thing I had no idea about World War II. All right, so, I also wanted to say that Fried actually, and it was December 11th, 1941. Thank you, Fried. With that study we mentioned, it actually found that the 4,000 women that were in this case study of did they continue to vote between the years 1952 and 88. So these are 19th Amendment women, and it actually showed that there was they were less likely to vote between those eras, and I don't know why. It says there's some disagreements,
right?
But I'd like to look at that because that's interesting. I mean, it makes me think that during the 50s, I'm thinking this is still a time when the women have different expectations as far as their roles go, and who's going to be making
Susie
decisions.
Homemaker, and yes,
yeah, she's not going to mess with politics, that kind of thing. I don't know, but that's fascinating. Thank you for bringing that up. I'll take a look at that. Yeah, definitely. So our next question, let's see. Yes. So this one comes from. This is from Karen. So Karen wants to know where we get all of our living history attire and props and everything. I'd be happy to throw a link in the chat if y'all have a particular company that y'all like.
I make my stuff.
Well, that's true, obviously, yes. You can always commission Marie to make something for you. But Marie's lucky to have that skill set. What about you, Glenn? Where do you go to?
I have been getting this stuff since 1998 or 9. Began acquiring things here and there and here and there from all sorts of places. There are some companies that it's almost a one-stop shop for colonial stuff, like James Townsend.
Oh, James Townsend's good.
Some companies have more authentic than other
That is also true.
equipment. So it all depends on what your sliding scale of need is. Do you go from the microscopic level to the 10-foot rule, which is that you can't tell it's not authentic from 10 feet away.
Right.
That's a sliding scale depending upon what you're doing, and you do what you need to do for those purposes. But I have gotten a lot of stuff on eBay, of course, and at antique stores. And heaven help us, Facebook now, the Facebook marketplace. There's a page for almost every niche of purchasing. Many people's Facebook pages their feed is filled with cats and friends and family and what they had to eat. Mine's mostly for sale stuff, which can be very dangerous. And it's everything from here's an inkwell to here's an entire set of clothing to hey, I found this button.
Yeah.
So that's one of the cool things. Like this everything I have on is a reproduction, of course, except the 4 buttons on my sack coat are original Civil War sack coat buttons.
Whoa, how cool!
How cool is that?
That is very cool. Wow.
Now, I can't make my own shoes. I'm not a cobbler.
Shoes are tough.
Shoes are hard. So for shoes, I have gotten shoes, my 17th century shoes, my 1700 shoes, 18th century shoes, are from Bugawi.
Mm-hmm.
The ones I have on now, I got at a yard sale, reenactor yard sale.
Oh, cool.
They have those at reenactments. I am planning on ordering shoes from American Duchess soon. I have not actually had
That's
any
the big
of their
fancy
shoes.
place,
I
right?
know.
American Duchess.
Well,
All right,
see,
I'm going to put in the
they
chat.
have these beautiful ones with the buttons and the button hook, like a button hugger, where it's like, you have to so I want those. And also they're coming out with lavender Kensingtons. Like an 18th
That sounds
century shoe.
super cute.
And I want them, because lavender is like my favorite color.
I'm also going to throw in Townsend's. Do y'all?
Oh yes, Townsend's.
Yes.
Yeah.
I have gotten props and stuff from
Props.
them.
They have what I like to call gewgaws.
Yes.
Gewgaws.
And the older I get, the more I like the gewgaws. I think, and we've discussed this before, men especially get into reenactment almost exclusively from a military perspective. We want to play soldier
Yes.
from whatever period. But the older I get, I start getting more interested, like doctor stuff or surveyor stuff or just regular stuff an 18th century man would have had around the house, like a couple of wine goblets and a jug and some writing implements and a magnifying glass and things, little boxes. And so, trying to furnish something so that you can do the presentation and make it feel very authentic for if you're in person, or we can do set decoration for if we're doing a live stream, or even the cooking stuff, right?
Mm-hmm.
Especially the cooking stuff. Oh, you got to have the cooking stuff from all the different periods.
Yeah.
Right?
So
You can't just have one frying pan or pot. You have to have 15 from ancient Rome all the way up to the 1920s.
They do change. They do change.
Yes. So if y'all are interested, I've put some links in the chat. You can check those out. And let's see. Karen was also curious to know: have y'all seen Upstairs, Downstairs? I assume that's maybe
I've
a
seen
movie.
like an episode of it. It's a TV show that was like Downton Abbey before Downton Abbey.
Yes.
Oh, okay.
For anyone who doesn't know,
Yeah.
I've seen some episodes of it, but I didn't get into it.
It was
Gotcha.
set. It's set a little bit later, if I'm remembering.
Yes.
It's like
30, 40, 50.
Okay.
Maybe.
I'm sorry, I'm getting it mixed up. It's a little before. Isn't it like
Okay.
1890s? I think it's 1880s or 90s.
Now I have two shows
I can't
in my
even remember.
head.
But it's a historical
But for some
drama.
It's the exact same idea though. It's the servants.
Uh-huh.
It's the people who live
Oh.
upstairs, right?
Yeah,
And then the
yeah.
people who live downstairs.
Oh, that's cool.
Which
Nice.
Downton Abbey also had like the lives of the people, the rich
Yeah.
people, and then like the workaday people.
Right.
Right.
And this was very much that juxtaposition. It's very BBC.
It is.
Cool.
Yes. Very
All right.
calm and slow moving. And did you see? Oh dear. Cut
I
the
love
scene.
it. Yes, right. All right, let's see what our next question is. We do have a few. Just to let everybody know, we will need to end a little bit short today, so we'll take as many questions as we can up till about 4:50 or so. All right, so our next question is: if any of you could live in the time of one monarch, who would it be? That's a great question. That's from Karen.
Excluding the current one.
I guess excluding the current one, unless, let's make it interesting. Excluding the current one.
So if I-
Does she mean British monarch?
I
that's a
say
good
we
question.
open it up
Are
to.
you talking about Emperor Constantine V of Byzantium?
Yes. I'm gonna open
Well,
it
not
up
that
to
guy.
all monarchs. Yeah.
He's
Not
crazy.
There's a lot that I could say I wouldn't want to live under, like Nero.
Yeah.
I'd be dead.
Nah, you'd be fine.
There are worse. There are worse than Nero. Yeah. But I mean, for pure interest of perhaps the context of the time, or whose court would you want to be a fly on the wall for?
Do I get to be a rich person?
Let's say yes.
Okay.
Yeah, you get to have among the easier of the of the social status.
I was like, otherwise it doesn't matter. I'm just on a farm.
Yes, right. Yeah, right.
To be on whose court? I'm trying to think of like one of the more fun monarchs.
I'm just going to say William the Conqueror because that's always my default, right?
Yes, of course.
Of
yeah.
course.
You'd
I just
wanna
want to
it.
see all that go down.
Yes, right. And of course, with William the Conqueror, that's the Norman?
Yes, the Norman Conquest.
Norman
1060.
Conquest.
I'll wait until he's Duke. We'll go watch the Battle of Hastings for a little while, take over England, live off the riches of the poor peasant Saxons, and just have a good time until we die of the plague.
Yes.
Or of old age at 46.
Yeah, right.
Happens.
Yeah.
If I could time travel back, okay, I have two answers. One is more obscure, and then one is not as obscure.
All right.
So we're going to go with the non-obscure one first. If I could be one of Marie Antoinette's friends,
Ooh.
I think that would be a lot of fun.
That would be fun.
Because, I mean, until you get,
Yes.
that's exactly. So if I can get out of there before I get my head chopped off,
Yes.
I think it would be fun. Because she just, like, showered her friends with, they just, like, lived in their own little pretty world.
Probably, yeah, just
And-
extravagant fashions, I would
Yeah.
imagine.
You
as
could be a
well.
spy for the revolutionaries and play both sides.
There you go.
I think I would have to survive.
You would.
And then I still might get my head chopped off in the Reign of Terror. Because
Oh,
they
boy.
didn't like double agents. They were
No.
just like, Eunice,
You gotta play. Yeah, you gotta play that careful.
I would have to.
It's
It would
close
be a
to that.
very careful game of politics
Yes.
involved with that, which I wouldn't want. I just want to go play in her. She literally built a little village, Le Petit Trianage, where she just like pretended to like romantic peasant life.
Really? Oh,
Oh,
my
yeah,
goodness.
she built her own theater where her and her friends would put on like plays.
Oh, wow.
And like they had their own like beautiful opera house in Versailles.
It's
And
good
then
to be
just
the queen.
Versailles is
Yeah.
nice. So if I didn't have to worry about anyone else, and I didn't have to worry if I could get out of there before I got my head chopped off, I think that might be fun. Also, the court of Charles II.
Ooh.
Fancy, yeah.
Oh, thank you so much, Phil.
Thank you
women started to get into theater and had a little bit more. I mean, if you're an upper class woman, I can go on for a very long time.
1 second, y'all. Sorry. I think we
okay.
might be having a little audio issue. Let me listen in to see. Oh, dear. Yeah, it's a little choppy.
Oh.
Let's see.
What happened?
I may need to... Let's see. 1 second. Let's see if this works. Test, test, test. Did that work at all? Check, check, check. Let's see. It's good now.
Oh, is it good?
Hold on. Let's check. Let's truly check. Okay, yay. Yay. It's back. Hooray.
That's how good she is, people.
Yeah, I click buttons and things work sometimes. Okay, so let's go back to Charles II. So you said this is a more obscure era.
Obscure, because he did nothing. Because he was partying.
He was partying,
Okay,
huh?
I mean, he did stuff.
He kept stuff together.
Okay, it's true,
Pretty
because
well.
then his brother did not.
Oh, James II.
Yeah, and then you had the Glorious Revolution.
But what's so
With
great
Glen
about
and
Charles
Marie.
II? Was it like...
He was just, he just kind of like partied. He
Oh,
didn't
I see.
take his
Okay.
duties of king seriously, so would I want to live under him? No. Would I want to live at his court? Yes. Because then we just get to party, and
You got all the Anglo-Dutch
you
stuff
have
going
theater. There was like a great restoration in theater.
Ooh.
And the costumes. Excuse me,
Yeah.
the clothing.
The
Yes.
clothing's really
You
good.
would- it's about the best.
It's really nice. And also you have like Whitehall Palace, and as long as you were rich and could get out before the Fire of London and the plague that happened all in... Well, I think one of the reasons why we don't like the number 666 in 1666.
A lot of bad stuff happened.
Yeah.
As long as you weren't in London during 1666, you could be okay.
Yeah.
And let me give some advice to anyone. If you're going to time travel,
Yeah.
make
Yes.
sure you end up rich.
Yes.
Just end up
Please.
rich.
If you're
Take
in the
lots of
upper
gold.
classes, I guarantee no matter
Probably
when, no
be
matter what
okay.
continent, as long as you're in the upper classes, you're going to be okay.
Or
be
you
all
have
right.
a self-sustaining farm.
That is a secret that very few
Yes.
know, but I'm here to tell you that's what you want
Huh,
to do.
life is easier when you have lots of money?
And power.
And
power.
power?
Don't forget power, Libba.
Wow.
And power.
The things
Unless
you learn.
you end up in the French Revolution, then you don't want to have money or
Oh,
power.
yes, yes.
That's a risk I'm willing to take.
It's true, because if you knew it was happening, you could get out before it actually happened.
Oh, Clavion is here. Hello, Clavion. Good to see you as well. And Terry.
Hi.
Hey, Terry.
Oh,
All right,
dear.
so Glenn, you said William the Conqueror, and we've got Marie's 2. So those are pretty broad range. So if we ever figure out time traveling, other than for our webcasts for
We
students,
do have a time machine.
we do have a time machine here at the History Center.
It is an unregistered nuclear device, just so everyone knows. That's the only way we can power it.
Yes. All right, so we'll take a few more questions, as many as we can. So Terry asks, when did non-land-owning white men start voting? Since, as you had mentioned before, that only white men who didn't own land could vote in the early days of
Right.
America.
That was it was a stretch of time because it was up to the respective states to determine voter eligibility. Right. That's one of those early states' rights versus federal government powers thing. So, when the Constitution was first put in place, I think every state had some form of property ownership requirement for voting. There may have been one up north that didn't, maybe Massachusetts, I can't remember. But, so between, the 1789 and you start getting into the 1820s and 30s, people began to realize that to become a more egalitarian society, you needed to involve everyone in the political process.
Whoa!
Crazy. And the people who were getting elected who could make that change were being elected by more and more not rich. That it was the lower and the middle classes, simply because of their numbers, that started voting more and more for people who could vote in getting those expanded enfranchisement. So by the time you get to the late 1820s, this is the age of Jackson, right? This is something Jackson said, is that the common man has to participate in his government, not just as a right, but as a duty. And so that's one of the things that propelled Jackson to his victory in the White House, is because by that point, by that election, most of the states had removed the property requirement so that all free, well, that's redundant for white people,
Right.
so that all white males could vote in the local elections, in the state elections, and therefore in the presidential elections as well.
All right, well, there you go.
And that's in the United States. To be honest, I'm not entirely sure when that all went down in England.
Yeah.
But that's the American take on it. It was a little bit before. The United States was generally ahead on universal white male enfranchisement in terms of what the British were doing.
Gotcha. And Karen's curious to know if we have any Girl Scout artifacts, and we do have a few. So we have a manual. Now, one of them is a reproduction of the manual from 1917. Another one is an actual Girl Scout manual from the 50s, which is really neat. We also have a camera that was branded for Girl Scouts. That one, I believe, is from the 1940s. Now, something that I really, really hope we can find and get eventually. Something is on my daydream list. I'll put a picture of it. This is called, here we go, an Acousticon.
Yeah.
So, if you are not aware, Juliet Gordon-Low, the founder of Girl Scouts, was very hard of hearing. She was not what you would actually consider deaf, as she was not a member of the deaf community. She did not attend schooling for her deafness. She could hear depending on the weather. It was really variable for here, but she did, on occasion, use an early type of hearing aid called an Acousticon. So the way that this would work is she would have to wear that box you see on her side, and there would be the round disc you see as the amplifier. So I think that's what's receiving the sound, and then she would have to to hold it up to whoever she was trying to hear and
Sort of like that.
Yes, exactly. Yeah.
Like a microphone.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Now, Juliet Low was not fond of these instruments. She really, really wanted just a surgical fix, and unfortunately, for her time, the inner workings of the ear were just not as well known as far as fixing something like deafness or hard of hearing. I mean, that's still sort of something we're still tackling to this day. So, there were many, many stories of her mistakes that she made when she was in conversations. She would also say that one good thing about her hearing loss was that she never had to hear the word no. There was a very funny story of her basically telling someone that, all right, so I've told the girls I need a troop leader next week to start, and I've told the girls you'll start next week. And the woman was just like, no, I couldn't possibly. It's just like, all right, see you then, as if she had said yes. So having an Acousticon, an actual one to use for when we portray Juliet Low, that'd be really cool. So that's something I've got my eye on.
And your ear on.
And my ear
Keep
on.
your ear to the ground for that.
That's right. Well, Glenn, I know you got to head out a little bit early, and we're already at 4:50. I know we've got questions in the chat. I am going to save your questions for next week, and we hope that you will be joining us for our live stream tomorrow. That's going to be about the Reconstruction era amendments, the 13th, 14th, and 15th Amendment, and we're going to have a special guest, Dr. Ben Wen. So I hope you'll join us for that tomorrow at 2 p.m. Eastern. And as always, we have our members live streams on Fridays at 2 p.m. Eastern. And this week, Marie will be presenting a members live stream about the history behind Victorian era weddings this time. So all been love themed for February. So guys, thank you so much for joining us. And we hope you all have a wonderful week. And we hope to see you soon in the chat again.
That's right. Thanks, guys.
All right, bye.